This is Coffee and Wisdom. I'm David Breeden, the senior minister at First Unitarian City of Minneapolis, and we take a humanist perspective on theological and philosophical questions. We've been looking at some of the definitions of humanism. As I've said, there are many of them. There is no central humanist core. It is groups who are trying to express what they see as humanism. They do have some commonalities, as we've seen. This is from Humanists International. The definition says humanism is a democratic and ethical life stance which affirms that human beings have the right and responsibility to give meaning and shape to their own lives. It stands for the building of a more humane society through an ethics based on human and other natural values in a spirit of reason and free inquiry through human capabilities. It is not theistic and it does not accept supernatural views of reality. The commonality here is this idea in theological terms of human agency. Can human beings do in the world in a manner which can help fix human problems? And humanists answer in the affirmative. And therefore, you can see why humanists are interested in the ideas of utopia as ways to project into the future other ways of being human. And this week, I've been looking at achievable utopias. Quick recap, utopia is a Greek word based on ou, not, and topos, as in topological, place, and alludes also to a similar sounding prefix eu, which means good, and it was first used by Sir Thomas More in his book Utopia in 1516. Last time, I took a little look at Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs as a way of speculating about how far up the ladder of needs we need to go in order to achieve utopia. Physiological needs are those such as housing and food, very basic survival kinds of things. Then on up to safety, love and belonging, esteem, and self-actualization, where along this line can a human society achieve, up to what level has been the question. I mentioned last time Rutger Bregman, born in 1988. He's a Dutch historian and author who wrote a recent book called Utopia for Realists. He has another very fine book as well. Utopia for Realists is his way of discussing how can we just get some way toward what we would consider to be a utopian way of doing. He writes, the great milestones of civilization always have the whiff of utopia about them at first. And then those ideas are attacked, he says, because one, they are futile. They're called futile, not possible to do. Danger, the slippery slope argument about if we do this for society, then we'll have to do this. And perversity, it will degenerate into a dystopia very soon. That's what the critics have to say. But in response, Bregman says, as soon as a utopia becomes a reality, it often comes to be seen as utterly commonplace. And one of the great examples of that is the 8-hour workday. Beyond the stretch of the imagination in the late 19th century, and now very much a reality. His ideas for a partial way to utopia are the universal basic income, UBI, which I discussed on Tuesday, and also the 15-hour work week and no borders, so that people can move back and forth across national boundaries, just as do corporations. He writes, free money works. Already, research has correlated unconditional cash disbursements with reductions in crime, child mortality, malnutrition, teenage pregnancy, and truancy, and with improved school performance, economic growth, and gender equality. All good things to get at, and free money sent to the poor is a way to get there. But a good question to say is UBI 15-hour work weeks and no borders what we really want in a utopia? How much toward utopia would that achieve is always a good question. Now, stepping back a little bit, I do want to go into another strain of utopian thinking. This from Charles Fourier, 1772 to 1837, a French sociologist, solution du problème social. He's going to fix all the social problems. And indeed, he came up with a very ingenious way to talk about possible utopias. Charles Fourier wrote this: civilization is a social plague on the planet, and vices are just as necessary to it as is a virus to disease. So, very much a Rousseauian idea here that civilization itself is the problem, and we have to get away from civilization. But of course, it's how you define civilization. So, what was he talking about? He also said the extension of women's rights is a basic principle of all social progress. There you go. That's very much a parcel of most utopian thinking from the mid 19th century into our own day. Charles Fourier came up with an idea that he called a phalanx. A phalanx is a group of people in an anarcho socialist gathering of people, very much a small group that then would come up with an industry and work together, one to support themselves. So there's going to be farming, and then some kind of industry, small industry, very much in the William Morris mode, that would then pay get some money into the mix. Under civilization, Charles Fourier wrote, poverty is born of superabundance itself. So he sees it as an inherent contradiction to think that we can produce our way out of the world in which most people are living in poverty. Can't be done, he thinks. He also wrote, the method of doubt must be applied to civilization. We must doubt its necessity, its excellence, and its permanence. So let's just put that on the chopping block here and consider what it does to us, and then decide to do another way. He came up with a lot of great ideas in terms of drawings. How do we build this utopia actually in the physical space? Also, there are leftover bits around of how he saw currency or payment. It was an idea of chits, essentially, that you do 3 hours labor for this. I will give you this piece of paper, and it is good for some corn, some milk, etc. So we're all working within this small little group of human beings to keep ourselves alive and make our lives better. He also wrote, despots prefer the friendship of the dog, who, unjustly mistreated and debased, still loves and serves the man who wronged him. Let's not be like dogs, says Charles Fourier. Let's stop letting our rulers mistreat us like dogs. He also wrote, the method of doubt must be applied to civilization. We must doubt its necessity, its excellence, and its permanence. Now, another anarcho-socialist, Peter Kropotkin, said this: educated men, civilized as Fourier used to say with disdain, civilized, tremble at the idea that society might someday be without judges, police, or jailers. So here we go with the idea that is very much a part of late 19th century and through the 20th century anarcho-socialist groups that will not need police or law, because everyone will be very much part of this small group that will cooperate. That's the idea anyway. Now, here in the United States, there were some Fourierist groups. One of them was in New Jersey. I'll talk a little bit about that one next week. The most famous one was Brook Farm. Brook Farm was part of the Transcendentalist movement of the mid-19th century, and very much had Unitarians involved, such as Thoreau and Emerson, and also included people such as Nathaniel Hawthorne. A very interesting sidebar in American history. Here's a book by Sterling Delano called Brook Farm, The Dark Side of Utopia. Or a little more hopeful view, A Season in Utopia, The Story of Brook Farm by Edith Roker Curtis. Brook Farm did not last, as most of these 19th century ideas of some kind of anarcho-socialist never quite worked out for various reasons. A major one being that they were attractive to intellectuals who actually didn't know how to farm and that kind of thing. And so putting the practicality of running some kind of human community was really not their forte, shall we say. Well, that's a look at some of the ideas of utopia that might or might not work out. One of the answers to failed utopias has always been, hey, maybe we need to achieve utopia in our own minds. And that's what I will be looking at next week. Thanks for listening this week. And if you would like to join in our conversation on Zoom on Fridays at 9 a.m. Central Time, I would be very happy to send you that Zoom link. All you got to do is email me, minister@firstunitarian.org. Thanks so much for listening this week, and I'll see you on Friday or next Tuesday.